Prince Harry lent his voice to co-narrate a video by the People's Vaccine, released to mark World AIDS Day. The clip draws striking parallels between the struggles for access to HIV medicines and COVID-19 vaccines in developing countries. With this video, the People's Vaccine, a movement of health and humanitarian organizations, experts, economists and global leaders, argues the world is witnessing history repeating itself when it comes to barring poorer countries to access to means that could drastically curb a pandemic. The video is narrated by both the Duke of Sussex and UNAIDS Executive Director Winnie Byanyima. It begins with Ms Byanyima saying, "The world is fighting a killer virus and not for the first time." It then shows footage from the late 1980s and 1990s regarding the worldwide HIV and AIDS crisis. Late Princess Diana appears in the footage while her younger son, Prince Harry, begins to speak. In the clip, Harry can be heard saying, "There are striking parallels between COVID-19 and another deadly pandemic, one that emerged 40 years ago, HIV." The video goes on noting both these pandemics have caused millions of deaths, but scientific breakthroughs such as antiretroviral treatments for HIV and the COVID vaccines have been able to bring life back to normal for many but not for all, as the Duke can be heard saying. He adds, "This is a story about how corporate greed and political failure have prolonged both pandemic and what we can do to stop it." While many rich countries are already distributing to their population booster jabs, only 6% of the people living in the continent of Africa have been fully vaccinated against COVID. This inequality in the distribution of vaccines comes as the United Nations warned AIDS will kill 7.7 million people in the next decade if access to treatments isn't not made fairer. Ms Byanyima can be heard saying in the video, "Why are the poor being left behind?" Among organizations endorsing the message of the video, there is Frontline AIDS, whose executive director Christine Stegling said, "This is not the first time the governments of rich countries have moved on from a problem as soon as it appears to be in someone else's backyard. We saw it with AIDS, where the transformative impact of HIV treatments in rich countries has seen urgency, focus and funding for the global response fall sharply, and we are starting to see the same thing with COVID-19. We cannot allow history to repeat itself. The COVID-19 pandemic is far from over, but high-income, high-vaccination countries are already starting to talk about future pandemics, while turning a blind eye to those that continue to impact poorer regions. This will only prolong the pain of existing pandemics, placing millions of lives at risk. We urgently need a TMS vaccine to benefit everyone, everywhere." Prince Harry has been championing the cause of vaccine equity for months alongside his wife, Meghan Markle. In May, the couple were campaign chairs of Global Citizens Vax Live, drawing attention on the importance to distribute COVID vaccine across the world to end the pandemic. They have since continued to keep the spotlight on this issue with other public appearances, including a series of visits during their tour of New York in September. But the Duke has also spent years working to improve the lives of people affected by HIV and AIDS. In the mid-2000s, he co-founded Sentebale to support the mental and physical well-being of children in Lesotho affected by HIV. With the passing of the years, the charity has opened a branch also in Botswana. The Duke of Sussex followed in his mother's footsteps in not only supporting people affected by HIV, but also breaking the stigma attached to people living with this disease. The late Princess of Wales famously shook hands without wearing gloves and hugged HIV patients during her official visits. At the height of the AIDS epidemic in 1987, Diana opened the UK's first specialist HIV/AIDS unit at London TMS Middlesex Hospital, where she said, "HIV does not make people dangerous to know. You can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it. What's more, you can share their homes, their workplaces, and their playgrounds and toys." Prince Harry has regularly marked World AIDS Day. Just last year, he said, "On this World AIDS Day, I want to restate my personal commitment to doing all I can to keep chipping away at the stigma, and to be able to say we are the generation that finally ends HIV. Speaking of the Duchess, he added, I think she's been very disrespectful to the Queen, who's such a great woman, such a great person, a historic person. I think she's very disrespectful to the royal family, and most importantly to the Queen. Speaking about Meghan's campaigning on paid parental leave using her royal title, Mr. Trump also said, she is trying to do things that I think are very inappropriate. During the Duke of Edinburgh TMS funeral, the royal household came together to bid their final goodbye to their beloved family member. Prince William and Prince Harry did not walk side by side as per royal protocol but with their cousin Prince Philip, who stood between them throughout the procession on the grounds of Windsor Castle. The Duchess of Cambridge played peacemaker as the royal brothers spoke to each other publicly to avoid being the centre of attraction on Prince Philip TMS funeral. According to lip readers, as William took off his mask he told Harry, yes, it was great, wasn't TMT it? Prince Harry replied, it was as he wanted. The brothers also spoke to the Archbishop of Canterbury before William turned to his brother again. Prince William continued, absolutely beautiful service, the music. ITN TMS Tom Bradby said, TMS often said funerals are a time for reconciliation and that TMS a scene a lot of people wanted to see, not least the family itself. Commentator Eve Pollard said, they were talking. They were possibly overcome by emotion. They were talking, and that TMS got to be a very good sign. Let TMS hope that they sort their recent troubles out because the Queen needs them both. The source was quoted as saying, there is a realization that everyone does need to reach some form of resolution, if only for the Queen, who has said it is her wish that the family comes together. It is the first public meeting of the brothers since the Sussexes stepped down from the royal duties as senior household members. Meghan and Harry were both waiting for someone to help them. They validate each other. Spotlight. It was 24 years that the two brothers walked together at the funeral of their mother Diana, Princess of Wales. The Duchess of Sussex chose to not attend the ceremony as she was pregnant with her second child and instead stayed home in California. As per sources, Prince Harry and Prince William reportedly met their father Prince Charles for 2 hours after the moving funeral service for Prince Philip took place. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, passed away on 17 April due to old age as certified by Sir Hugh Thomas, head of the royal medical household. Second episode of the documentary The Princes and the Press trademark aired on Monday evening. The programme, fronted by the BBC TMS media editor Amol Rajan, caused concern within Buckingham Palace over a number of issues. Lawyers for the royals are reportedly on standby to take action against the Beeb over unfounded claims. The Daily Mail reported on Sunday that lawyers will decide whether the broadcaster broke accuracy and impartiality rules after the second part of the documentary has aired. The newspaper claimed a robust complaint to BBC chiefs, or to media watchdog Ofcom, is possible, with legal action considered less likely. The second part of the documentary covered the period from 2018 to 2021, a period which included the birth of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry TMS' first child Archie, as well as the royal tours of both the Sussexes and the Cambridges. Mr. Rajan investigated the allegation that Kate, Duchess of Cambridge, had been reduced to tears by Meghan. Two separate sources told The Telegraph in 2018 that Kate was left in tears after a bridesmaid's dress fitting for Princess Charlotte, in the run-up to the Sussexes' trademark wedding in May that year. Kensington Palace, the press office for both Meghan and Kate at the time, did not comment on the story. Much later, Meghan told Oprah Winfrey that the story was false and the opposite had happened. Mr. Rajan said, but by then, the narrative was in place. A graph showing the sentiment of media coverage at the time was played, signaling a very clear turning point in the coverage of Meghan. Mr. Rajan noted, until the end of 2018, sentiment was mostly above zero, indicating a positive tone. In November, when the stories about dueling duchesses appeared, it dropped below zero, meaning the coverage was mostly negative. From this point on, Meghan, Harry and the press would be in a battle over Meghan TMS reputation. The Times trademark royal correspondent Valentine Lowe recalled writing a piece about Meghan in mid-2018. He said, "I remember writing a piece about Meghan, and it was all about how she was a breath of fresh air. She was something positive for the royal family, she was bringing something new. She was great." There were slight elements of criticism in that piece, but it was definitely 85% positive. He recalled the story about Meghan allegedly making Kate cry appearing a bit later that autumn. He said, "That was one of the turning points." When asked why, Mr. Lowe said, "It opened up a narrative, a sort of soap opera narrative. A soap opera storyline, the battling duchesses. Once people could seize on that, they could pursue it." Outgoing BBC journalist Andrew Marr said of the alleged briefing wars between the Sussexes and the Cambridges, "They have allowed a gap to appear. Through that gap, very destructive journalism will follow and flow." He continued, "I think, therefore, this division will be potentially lethal. Very, very damaging for the whole royal family." Sky News trademark royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills recalled noticing how things had changed during Meghan and Harry TM's trip to South Africa in 2019. "Harry," she said, "wasn't TMT like the Prince Harry that we TMD known before." She said, "He didn't TMT really engage. He didn't TMT really come and talk to us in the way that he would have done." Ms. Mills admitted she realized she had kicked the wasped TMS nest when Harry hit back at her as she tried to ask a question about his work during a stop in Malawi. Footage shown in the BBC documentary shows Harry initially ignoring Ms. Mills, before slamming, "Don't TMT behave like this," as she questioned him. The tour of South Africa ended on October 2, 2019. The Sussexes stepped back from the royal family just 3 months later.